Mutuals was looking through government grants and found a very interesting one with a very interesting address. I have peeled back some very interesting layers to this. So here we have a grant from the Virgin Islands government to Nana Baby Children's Home, which has a very familiar address. Jeffrey owned 50% of Red Hook. So naturally, I looked into it, especially considering this place is the only 24-hour facility on St. Thomas that will admit children into emergency housing. But you guys can imagine that the red flashing lights really started when I found out that Governor Bryan last year purchased the Nana Baby Home facility. This place has been around for a while, starting in 1989, and it's not a very big place. It only houses about 12 children at a time. However, in 2005, the woman who started the shelter passed away, but then her daughter and her sister and a board of trustees kept it going. Now, through that daughter's obituary, I was able to track down something very interesting. Turns out one of her aunts is Gertrude Robles Plaskett. Yes, as in Representative Stacey Plaskett. You know, the woman who was exchanging texts with Epstein in 2019 at that congressional hearing. Gertrude is apparently Stacey Plaskett's aunt. Now, in this tax filing from 2018, which was received in 2019, so this is after Jeffrey had died, it lists the address of the children's home and has the name of the principal officer with the same address listed. It seems like he's the treasurer of this board of trustees. And I could find very little information on Lawrence Akey except for the fact that he is the president of the Virgin Island Bankers Association. Now, in this tax exemption form from 2024, we have a different name, Pia Brunt, with a different address. The children's home still has the same address, which makes me think, is this banker the person who owns that property? Well, I looked up president of the Board of Trustees, Pia Brunt, who was associated with that filing, and it turns out she's the chief financial officer at MSI Building Supplies, which is a company that sells wholesale building material, which did a lot of business on Epstein's Island. However, y'all remember Anne Rodriguez? Well, it seems like her card was the one buying the stuff from MSI. And y'all may remember that Anne Rodriguez's sister's father-in-law owned a construction company, did a bunch of business with Epstein. Now here's where things are going to take a little bit of a twist, because I looked up this address, and while it's not the one that belongs to Jeffrey Epstein, that same address comes back to who? Alpine Securities. Y'all don't remember Alpine Securities? Well, let me refresh your memory. So y'all remember when Denise George, the former AG of the Virgin Islands, sued Jeffrey Epstein and his estate? And remember how we talked about this FBI tip where Denise George was interviewed and then she basically got fired by Albert Bryan Jr.? Well, in that tip, she talks about the shady dealings between Southland Gaming and the governor, talking about how this guy, Jason Charles, was also part of the Southland Gaming Company and Generation Now, which was connected to the campaign manager for Bryan. It's all convoluted, I know. Well, Jason Charles not only worked for Southland Gaming, but he worked for the Economic Development Authority under the former Governor John DeJong. And for 10 years, he worked for Alpine Securities. And who worked under Governor DeJong as the EDA coordinator? Paul J. Arnold Sr., the grandfather of Paul J. Arnold III. PJA III is dating Emery Polian, who is the daughter of Anne Rodriguez. He's the guy who also got arrested for punching and assaulting people who went onto the island. I know this is all confusing. If y'all need to go to my YT page and get a little refresher on all of this, I definitely recommend it. Because the last part of that video, they wouldn't let me post on TT, so. And some of you might remember that a couple weeks ago, Bryan came to an agreement with Southland Gaming to rebuild a long dormant racetrack. I also found that Stacey Plaskett had this nice little email exchange back in 2011, in which she forwards a reporter's question that says that Jason Charles stated that Jeffrey Epstein was registered as a financial service and investment advisor with the Trading Commission and a whole bunch of other places, and all those places said that Jason Charles was full of it. So clearly Stacey Plaskett has been covering for Epstein for years. But anyway, I digress. So I was looking at the Economic Development Authority website here. You know, the people that are advertising, hey, shady business people, come do it here. We have tax breaks. And I started looking into their beneficiaries. And look here, we've got the Alpine Group. Same address as the baby home. With Jason Charles back on the team, apparently, as the Chief of External Affairs. Now, they do have, like, a philanthropy section, don't get me wrong. But why are they the ones filling out the grants for this place? Now, just wait, though, because here's the kicker. So, apparently, the Virgin Islands purchased a whole brand new facility for the Nana Baby Home, which is currently being run by this woman. But wouldn't you know it, they actually say in this article about it that they used the money from Jeffrey Epstein's settlements to buy this facility. I may be asking, what does this have to do with Jeffrey Epstein? And I'm getting to it, I promise. Because here we've got a guy, John Christensen, who's talking to Jeffrey, saying that I have a client in St. Thomas that you guys should meet. Since the two of you are both in the same line of work and have offices in the same building at Red Hook. Charles Kim owns Alpha Securities, few hundred million in the energy market. I oversee his properties on St. Thomas. Very connected on the island. And then he's like, I don't know if there's anything you guys could help each other with, but I wanted to make the introduction. And another email, he offers to show Epstein Charles's house, even though Charles won't be there, but the housekeeper would just let them in. She did the exact same thing before with Jeffrey, only with Celine Dion's property, and he got fired for it. And clearly this guy knows what's actually going on the island because he asked if his girlfriend could come visit while he was there. And Jeffrey said that the girlfriend had to stay on St. Thomas, not on the island, meaning the girlfriend wasn't part of the club. So whether that introduction happened or not, I don't know. But I do know that the Alpine company basically seems to be the sponsor of this baby house. Just something feels wrong and weird about this place because they have like fashion shows that you buy tickets for as fundraisers. And I swear you can't make this up. She was advertising a pizza and pasta fundraiser. Having that fundraiser in a hotel just doesn't sit right with me, especially when we consider this. Y'all know how Jeffrey Epstein's boat was called the Little Sea? Well, do y'all know what the name of the tender boat was? The one that would go make trips back and forth? Nana. Nana was the name of the boat that would go back and forth. Take what you will out of all of that information.